There it is. There it is. Awesome. Welcome, Lance. So
Hey, Jack. How you doing, brother?
Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning to you. Afternoon for me. How's everything?
It's excellent. Excellent.
Awesome.
How are you being?
I'm good. I'm good. We have a cameo from Apple Juice.
Oh, yeah. I got my little water. Got to stay hydrated. You know, I literally just woke up. So I was like, because I'm usually doing these at 11. And I'm like, oh, it's just like an hour earlier and I had a long night. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I'm excited to wake up with you, man.
Yeah, man.
And
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to talking with you. You're one of my favorite people. I've been following on Instagram for a while, or just connecting through the magic community. I know we've known each other for like, what, 6 years, just through like, through like Instagram, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it all started. You know, Instagram has opened up so many doors and connections more than I ever would have thought would be. And it's funny because I've had so much push and pull with social media, like, oh, I just want to be off grid, but then I'm like, well, no, this really keeps me connected with my family here, with the magic community. And it's a beautiful thing, and you've helped me grow, even be a better person as well. You share a lot of positivity, and I'm excited to get down into that and to help people really become the better versions of themselves, and to dive deep and go to the roots of any problems and grow roses out of them, you know? It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. You know, I am with you on the same page. You know, we look at social media and we think, man, it takes so much of our time. You know, should I really be on? Should I really be a part of this world, this virtual world? But everything is a double-edged sword, right? It's like having a gun, for example. You can use it to protect yourself, or you can use it for very bad things, you know?
Right.
Your words, right? Your tongue. Everyone knows that quote, right? The tongue is a double-edged sword. You can uplift with your words, or you can hurt people. You can really scar them emotionally and psychologically. Same with social media, right? You can use it to waste your time, to, you know, consume false information and to spread rumors and things like that. Or you can use it to unite, to connect, to collaborate, to do things like this, to share ideas, to grow together, right? And I think everything's about how you use the tool you have, right? And what's your focus. You know, a lot of people complain about, you know, they go through social media and they feel emotionally, it's emotionally taxing on them, right? They're like, oh, I see so much negativity and blah, blah, blah. Just unfollow those people. Surround yourself with people who inject in you that positivity and lift you up and give you a brighter outlook on everything. You know, reality is never perceived as it is. We're always filtering it, and we're filtering it through our pre-existing beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. If you're wearing shades, everything looks dark. If you're wearing pink glasses, everything looks pink. If your glasses are dirty, everything looks unclear and fuzzy. So we have to change how we interpret our reality so that the thing we look at changes, and we have control over that. We always have control over that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's you're totally right on the point. I mean, we go based on our personal beliefs, and you go on something like social media, you could start believing what you read or see. And that's when we start taking it personally, or we assume, and then that's where we just get more twisted in the mind, because we don't know what's right or wrong, and we're just going along with the ride of life and maybe social media, and then we agree with these beliefs. And those core beliefs may not even align with you, and you may not even realize that yet. And I think that's part of growing and understanding, because sometimes you got to make mistakes to learn. And beautiful mistakes are awesome. I mean, when you do the same thing over and over again, that's madness, right? But through madness becomes, you know, genius in a way, right? You got to break through to that moment of understanding, because I know in my life I've had those moments, and I've seen just growing up, and I'm seeing even more so right now in this crazy in between times, people breaking through. I mean, you're seeing all spectrums of life, like freaking out, and then people being really positive, and then people just slowing down, you know. So you're seeing like a very radical change, you know, a big shift, and I think it's a beautiful time. It's the blessing and the curse, the double-edged sword. You know,
Yeah.
we gotta see the balance. Everything's balance, and definitely what you said. It should be seen as it is, not as we think it is.
Exactly, exactly. You know, and even with what's going on right now, right? It is what it is, right?
Right.
But we can choose, right? And that's the amazing thing about us humans. We always have the power to choose how we interpret what happens, right? And we can look at this and say, I give up, you know, and toss a towel, as they say, right? And forget about all our goals and dreams and all that, and get all anxious and afraid and depressed and stay in bed under our bed sheets 24 hours a day and say, you know, I give up, right? Or we can choose to look at this and say, what is great about this? And it's a really great exercise to do. Whenever something bad happens or makes you anxious, ask yourself, what's great about this? And what that's going to force you to do is it's going to force you to focus on the good. And, you know, Tony Robbins is famous for saying, where your focus goes, energy flows, right? And when you focus on good in something, you start to find gratitude, right? And you can't actually feel gratitude and anger or anxiety or fear simultaneously. So you push all those negative emotions away when you're grateful and you're present, and you ask yourself, what's good about this? What can I take away from this? How can I grow from this experience? How can this make me a better person? And now is a really great time to grow, to connect, right? We have time to do these kinds of things. We have time to work on ourselves, to learn a new skill, to read that book we've been putting off, you know,
And I'm doing lots of reading.
to do whatever it is, right? That we've always said, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And it just goes to the back of our mind, right? Now is a great time for that. It's a great time to connect, right? To call those old friends, you know, we haven't talked with in years, that maybe we neglected, you know, and to find the good. And again, we create it, right? You create the good things. You create the opportunities. Happiness is not a noun. It's a verb. It's something you do, right? It's and that's a really liberating thing. And so is love, right? You choose to love someone. You know, if you love someone, you're choosing to love that person every single day. You're making that choice. They're the person you love, right? It's a choice, right? And so we have the power to choose what we focus on and how we look at things. And I think that's an amazing power to have.
Yeah, extraordinary willpower is the ultimate power, right? To find that within you, and to know who you are is one of the toughest things to be, you know, because we get so programmed by our parents, by culture, and everything else. And to be aware of that, you know, awareness is key. And like you said, to be grateful and to be forgiving, because I think people hold on so much to the crap that maybe has happened to them or they've done to other people, and then they can't forgive. So yeah, just to forgive yourself and others and everything that's gone on in the world. And then, you know, and the practice of gratefulness. I mean, that's something I do every day too. And I've only more recently been, in the past year, more sticking to that, you know, to forgive and be grateful, and then set my intention. And that's where I feel more true.
It's amazing. That's awesome. You know, I've seen you've been reading The Power of Now.
Yeah.
You're
I just finished it a week ago. And I've been just taking my time, because it's just one of those books, and I've been rereading it. You know, it's just one of those books you could always just go back to and really help you to be present, right?
Yeah. That's what it's all about. You know, that's another big thing. You know, being present. Eckhart Tolle, the author of The Power of Now, he said in the book, and I've never read the book, but I know he said this. He said that all feelings of anxiety and stress and worry and fear, they come from focusing on the future that hasn't happened yet, or focusing on the past, right? All the feelings of anger and resentment. So when you're focusing on what happened and what may not happen in the future, you feel all these negative emotions, right? Generally, if you're watching this, think about the thing that stresses you out. Think about the thing that makes you anxious, that angers you. It's something that is over or hasn't even happened.
Just one big illusion.
It's exactly, you know, we're making it up. And the really dangerous part about that is that the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So every time you remember a bad memory, you're reliving that memory.
Yeah.
That's why the emotion comes back. And same thing with anxiety. What is anxiety? It's you thinking, well, if that happens, then
might happen again.
This bad thing will happen, right? It's future forecasting. But do we even know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? You don't even know what I'm going to say 5 minutes from now. How can we predict what's going to happen tomorrow or next year? You know, and that's a really important distinction to make. You know, we become anxious, we become scared, we become angry when we're not present. And so, practicing that, focusing on the now and what is here in front of us, and being where our feet are, right? That's gonna get rid of all those negative emotions. If we really practice that and we meditate on the present moment, it's impossible to feel any kind of negative emotion. That's a really liberating thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. People will fight the presence a lot as well. You know, like, oh, no, you don't understand. No, I got this, I got that. You know, and they're just going so ahead, or they're living so much in the past that they're forgetting about now.
Yep.
And, you know, I've been able to stay with my family in the past month and share that book with them and see the teachings that I've learned, and then, you know, offer it to my mother and my sister. And I almost see, you know, being around family, like who I really am and where I got the stuff and how I thought. And it's a trip because I haven't been that close to family until now, you know, like to really be present with them without all that work and mundaneness of life that we get caught up in the future and the past BS, you know, and it really opened my eyes, and it's cool to share this information, have them open and be aware, and they're like, okay, and they'll come to me, what do I do? I'm like, just be present. And they're like, you're going so ahead. There's so many things you don't even need to say. Like people always want to come up. And another thing I find very interesting in this time, even for myself, like I'm now holding back certain epiphanies I'll have for myself. You know, when you get excited and you're like, oh my God, I want to share this with someone. That's for me, really. It's not really meant to be shared with anybody else. I mean, it's good to share it with people, but people may not really get it because that epiphany was for you. And that was an epiphany, and with an epiphany for myself. I was like, whoa. That's a trip. And so I've been telling my sister, because my sister, she's like clicking right now, and she's like, oh my God, I'm getting it. And then and I get it, she wants to share and connect. And that's what I always felt too growing up. Like even in high school, I just felt like I was just kind of on this level where I'm like, why is everybody just going so far ahead or living so far in the past? And in a way, I know I was kind of wanting to go ahead too. But then I'm like, no, I like it here. I'm like, why are people going so far away? And
it's crazy.
It is. So awareness is definitely key, because I think people may not realize it, you know, until they take off the glasses and like, whoa.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, right? Maybe you've seen these. There's some. I never thought of this, but it's pretty funny. Have you seen those spy glasses where they have like a mirror on the inside? There's sunglasses. They have a mirror right here. So it looks like you're looking in this direction, but you're actually looking behind you. Right. You seen those?
Yeah, I used to
have it. It's like, right?
Kid, yeah.
So you're like, you can't see what's in
front.
Like
we're living that. A lot of people are living that all the time. They're like,
exactly, right? It's really interesting. You know, and it's crazy because you know you talk to people and you know you make friends and all that, and you can feel when someone's not present, and that's something that's very. What's the word? Well, it's rude, number one, right? But once you create this awareness, right, and you're able to tap into that, the act of being, just being, you can tell when someone's there and when someone's not, right? And that's the key to building really strong connections and relationships with people. It's when they're there, be there with them, you know, show up. You know, how often do we have a conversation with someone and we don't feel listened to? You know, the worst thing you can do is not listen to a person, not try to understand. You don't have to agree with someone to understand their point of view, to understand what's going through their mind and what they're feeling. You know, a lot of people are having a conversation and they're focused on what their response is going to be. You know, what they're going to reply to whatever the person's saying. So they never even process what the person just said. They may interrupt, you know, or someone says something and immediately they reply with their agenda of the conversation, right? And they're not flowing with what's naturally happening. You know, and a lot of people are like, oh, how can you have a conversation so effortlessly? How can you never run out of things to say? Right? A lot of people struggle with that. But it's just a matter of being there, you know, and paying attention, and things will naturally flow. And that's what's happening here, right? We're just building off of what each other is saying and being in the moment.
Yeah. And that's the greatest gift you could give someone, is to let them be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a struggle, you know. I know even for myself, I look back at myself and be more aware of who I was and maybe who I am still sometimes. And it's like, oh man, I gotta slow down. I gotta not, you know, I don't like. I'm always trying to wear, like, when I'm thinking of an answer already when they're talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, like just listen and just be, and just like, because that's the greatest respect too you could give someone. You know, they really are. You know, you got to give attention to have them pay attention. So it's like give and receive sort of thing as well.
Yes, you know, it's funny you say that, because that reminds me of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you read the book?
No, I haven't. Yeah, but I've heard great things about that.
You have to. It's the Bible.
Yeah, I'll put that one on my list.
That's the Bible.
How to Win Friends. What is it again?
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It is the Bible of human relations. It's amazing, and in the book, Dale Carnegie says something really, really powerful. He says, if you want to be interesting, be interested.
Yes.
If you want to be interesting, be interested. And that's such a fascinating idea, you know, and I play with it. One time I went to a party and I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk in, and for the first half an hour, I'm just going to talk about myself. I'll even make things up and see how people respond. And after that first half hour, the second half hour, I'm going to talk very little. I'm only going to ask about people, you know, and whatever they tell me, and I'm going to respond to it, and I'm just going to let them pretty much guide the conversation and be genuinely interested in what they have to say and what matters to them. And I was, you know, consciously noticing the difference between the two, and I could tell, I mean, it was night and day, you know. At the beginning, you know, it was cool, but then as I kind of ignored what they were saying and I talk about me, I could notice, like, on their face first, this, like, from this to like, I don't really want to be here kind of thing. And then you have the body language starting to show that people cross their arms and their feet point away from you, which means they want to leave the conversation. And at that point, it was even uncomfortable for me, you know? So I just ended. But when you ask about what they care about, and, you know, you ask things. I love this question. I love asking this question. You know, first small talk, you know, you introduce yourself and whatever, you know, how do you know the hosts of the party, all that. And then eventually I like to lead into, what are you passionate about? Or what's your story, you know? Yeah. What sparks joy in you, you know? And mainly because I'm interested in
And that's a better question too, like, because I know a common question is like, oh, what do you do, right? And that's like, people don't really like that, but that's a better approach, what you just said, absolutely.
Yeah, and what's, in a way, it's a little selfish, because I ask it for me to vet the person and determine whether I want to be friends with them, you know? Yeah. If someone's like really negative and, you know, has very negative and pessimistic mindset, I'm not really interested in having a conversation with that kind of person or even bringing them into my life. So in a way, that's also me genuinely trying to figure out whether I want to be friends with them. But what it showed me too is when I asked those kinds of questions and I genuinely, and this key word is genuinely, become interested in them, they open up like a flower, and it's crazy because then they go to other people and they're like pulling people in. They're like, hey, you got to meet this guy. He's the most interesting person here. And like, they don't know anything about me, really. I'm like an enigma.
Right.
I know everything about them. And that's really, really revealing. You know, if you want to be more interesting, be more interested. Focus on serving, focus on adding value to other people, on uplifting others, on helping others on their journey in any way you can. That has brought me a lot of gratification, a lot of fulfillment, and has helped me build really, really strong relationships. You know, it's amazing if you do it right, if you are selfless about interactions and you're present and you listen to the other person, and like you said, accept them, right? Let them be who they are. It's amazing how much progress you can make and how much trust you can build in a day. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, family is family. No, family are the people that treat you like family. You know, blood means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. You've known someone for 10 years. You know, if the connection is not there, it's not there. You know, and you can build trust and rapport with someone in one day that's stronger and more solid than some family members even. You know, and it all comes down to, again, listening, genuinely being interested in others. And Dale Carnegie talked a lot about that in the book. It's an amazing little fact about human psychology that I've always loved.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to read that book. That's another one on the list. I know. So I've been doing mostly reading throughout this time, and you know, I've had expectations for myself to be like, oh, I should be doing so much more, but at the same time, like, and I've been telling other people, like, yeah, you know, it's unfortunate. There's that double-edged sword sort of thing where, like, you should be working, you should be doing a lot of work and blah 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 and doing this and that, evolving, and then people are like, well, no, honestly, you could slow down right now. This is a perfect time to slow down and not do anything, because we're always working, no matter what. So, because for those workaholics, I could see them freaking out because they're not doing the work stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time. I'm really, really excited. I like, my anticipation went away, because in the beginning for this, it was like a lot of anticipation and like waiting for the normalcy to come back. And I'm like, you know, I'm okay, and I'm really enjoying the present. And you know, you also reminded me too, talking about the way we work with people and the way we got to be interested with them for them to be interested in us. Yeah. And it also works the other way around too. For me as a street performer, I'm on the street and I'm very interested in whatever I'm doing. Yeah, I'll be interested in them, and I have to, and I got to get their attention.
Yep.
But a tool that I learned is just to be so interested in whatever I'm doing that it causes that curiosity. Like, what is this guy so passionate about?
Yes.
What is he doing?
Yep.
And then I go to them and I give them attention. Just be interested in them because I want them to be interested in me when I'm interested in. And it's like it's a weird you know, ball game. You know, you're trying to share that energy. And with every entertainment or anything we do, not just entertainment, just connecting with people, it is a ball game. You know, we gotta pass the rock or the conch, right, to speak. You know, and that's a great tool. I remember growing up in somewhat of a dysfunctional family, and my mom and dad went through a lot of therapy, and they try to work it out, you know, and I remember them doing the rock, like, you pass the rock to talk. And so I learned that growing up. I'm like, okay. And so when we had these disputes in families, even nowadays, we'll still do that. Like, do you need the rock? You know, because we wanted to talk over one another. But that's a good tool, because some people forget that they're thinking so much rather than really letting people be and accepting them. You know, they think it should be this way or that way, and they have this strong judgment and the belief, you know, of what's right or wrong. And who's to really say what's right or wrong? It's just as it is. Yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting what, as we said, as it is, because we have these strong beliefs, and that's like the craziest thing. That's why all this war happens, no matter what. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it's one of my favorite books I've been reading. I just finished too, and it's another book I'm rereading a lot of books because I'm seeing things a lot differently now because I didn't click with me before. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so simple.
Like
And
what?
a lot of things really is so simple. We just overcomplicate it. But this book is the Four Agreements. And it's the Toltec, in the Four Agreements, it's an old Toltec book, and it's like be impeccable with your word, like you said in the beginning.
Mhm.
We're casting spells, whether it's white magic or black magic.
Yes.
And the second one is to not take it personally. Don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
The third agreement was to not assume everything.
Yeah.
And that goes all based with belief, right?
Yep.
And then the fourth one is doing your best. And there's all like connect back and forth. It's a whole cycle. So if you're always doing your best with everything you do, you're going to have pride with even washing dishes or just thinking you're being present. You're like, yeah, I'm just doing this.
It's really interesting. It's wild because I was on a FaceTime with a really, really close friend last night, and she mentioned the Four Agreements. I never heard of the book before.
Really? No way.
Yeah, we were talking about books, and I recommended a book to her. I can't remember which one it was. We were talking about books, and she showed me that she was about to read The Untethered Soul. And
oh yeah, I've heard a lot about that one too.
she told me she just finished reading the Four Agreements, and I was like, "Oh, I never heard of that one." It's funny you just brought it up, so I guess.
Yeah, and it's a small little book. I have it somewhere. Let me see if I can pull it out. I literally have it in my bed. I have like 3 books just laying in my bed just to pick up if I'm like struggling, and this is one of them, honestly. So it's like The Power of Now, this, and I have another one that's called The Optimist Fit. That's a fun one too, and they all kind of go hand in hand. But this is it. It's a small little book though.
Interesting.
And it's great. I'm like, I remember seeing that book as a kid in my home. My mom had it, and I'm like, yeah.
So it's pretty old.
I read it, but it just doesn't click at that time. Now it's like, oh my goodness, magic.
Real magic.
Real magic, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, books are amazing. I forget how the saying goes, but if you read, you live many lifetimes. You know, because you get the information from all the lessons that these people got from making mistakes in their own lives. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I talk about in my performances. Sometimes I mention reading as the truest form of mind reading. You know, when you're reading a book, you're reading someone else's thoughts, right?
Right. Yeah. Totally.
You know, and you're also talking to the dead sometimes, or rather, they're talking to you, right? Which is also another.
And it's just like self hypnosis too. You know, you're like you're believing it, and you're like, all right, you go along with the whole story.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But yeah, man, it's really interesting how you mentioned that when you do the street magic performances, you show in your body language and in your mannerisms, you show that you're really invested in what you're doing and that it's really interesting, and you're fascinated by it. You're entranced by it yourself, you know, almost like you're experiencing the magic as well, or observing the magic as well.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because when you said that, I couldn't help but think of confidence. You know, sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. If you are excited about your product or service, that is transferred onto the person that's listening to you, and then they become excited about your product or service. They believe in it. If we don't believe, this is a fact of life. If you don't believe in what you're saying, in what the service you're offering, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. If you don't believe in something, nobody else will. You can say whatever you want. If you don't actually have that conviction, people will feel it. They will feel the inconsistency, the incongruence between what you're saying and what you really feel, right? And it's really fascinating that you bring that up, because in just the act of you communicating, this is something really interesting and wonderful, because you're telling yourself that in your head, they pick up on it almost intuitively. And that's why they stop. It's, oh, something strange and wonderful is going on, you know? And then you bring your focus and attention to them once the crowd builds. You know, and that's really, really fascinating. I think that that overlaps with many other things in life, you know, um, just like confidence, you know, talking to someone, pitching a service or, you know, a product. You know, it all comes down to what you believe, the stories you tell yourself, and how you see yourself, self-esteem, confidence, you know, your self-image. If you feel like you're not worthy, if you feel like you're not good enough, um, for example, this happens a lot. If a man feels he's not worthy of speaking to a beautiful woman, right, because to him she's otherworldly, right, and not human, um, you know, then there's going to be that barrier, and he can't be himself. He can't be authentic, and she feels it, and then obviously nothing happens. There can be no friendship. There can be no, you know, romantic relationship there because of his own self-image, and that lack of confidence stands in the way of building a powerful connection with another individual. So it's about being authentic. It's about believing in what you're about, in yourself, and that's why I do what I do. You know, it's about making people break through all those barriers, the limiting beliefs, the fears, the anxiety, so they can be who they really are. You know, we are born fearless. We're born confident. We're born and we haven't been programmed yet. We're programmed between the ages of 1 and 8, age of reason, right? We're absorbing everything. And during that gap of time, we're absorbing everything. And half of what, as a grown-up, is our perception of reality, we internalize in those 8 years, which is crazy. 50% of how things work is programmed into us between the ages of 1 and 8. And that's crazy stuff, man. So before we were programmed, we are unstoppable. There's no limit. That's why children dance without a care in the world. That's why they say, I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. I want to be a singer when I grow up. I want to be an actor when I grow up. But then, you know, they enter school and they enter high school, and then they have to fit in. Yeah, they program people, tell them you shouldn't do that. You should do this. You know, if you do this, you're going to be accepted by everyone, and they'll like you and they'll love you, and you're going to get praise and attention. And then what happens is we let go of who we really are to be someone we're not, to satisfy other people that we really don't care that much about and really don't do that much for us. And at the end of our lives, when we're 90, when we're 80, then we realize, damn, I just wasted my entire life trying to please other people. And only when we're old, usually, then we're like, I'm just going to be myself. And that's why, you know, old people curse and old people do whatever the hell
go
they
back
want
to
to do.
that kid again, you know, they become disobedient and they become like my way or the highway because they've lived
Exactly.
life with this other program that they like realized later on that didn't serve them.
Exactly. And my thing is, why wait? You don't have to wait till you're 80. You don't have to wait till you're 90. You can get rid of all of that crap. Tony Robbins calls it BS, belief systems. You can get rid of all those belief systems now so that you can actually enjoy life and be the best self, your highest self, and not care about what people think and be here the best way you can, you know, and show up in the world as the best version of yourself and give the world your magic, share your lights with the world. And that's a really wonderful thing. You know, when people are really themselves and they're like, you know what, I want to be this, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a dancer, so I'm going to go dance. I'm going to take dance classes, and they do it, and the passion just, it comes out of their pores, and you can see it, and you can feel it. You're like, man, I wish I was like that person. They have something that I want to have too, you know, and that's inspiring. Seeing other people shine their light gives us permission to shine our own, you know, and that can have a rippling effect in the world as a whole, you know. So that's really what it's about. It's about believing in ourselves and getting rid of all that programming, all that BS that holds us back from being who we should be.
I know, isn't that wild? Like learning about all this. I mean, I'm like 30 now, and I feel like I'm really starting over now. Like I thought I knew a lot way before, like a year ago. Really. I thought I knew everything, and I'm like, nope. Here I am starting from the beginning. It's really refreshing. I mean, the past year I took a very spiritual path and went through a whole yogi life, and was fortunate enough to do a festival, do performing magic at Wonderlust, which is a yoga festival. And there I learned a lot, and that was last summer. And I was like, it just blew my mind. Like, I thought I knew, like I said, I thought I knew so much, and I had this arrogance in a way, and overconfidence, and I was just putting the layers of the mask, you know, on, and I'm like, oh man. I mean, you know, everyone has goodness in them, but then they don't really know the beast they've created throughout that program. And that ego, because the ego just wants to just be built up so much, and you find pride in that, and you don't want to let go of that. And I think the hardest part is to become nobody, you know, and to be one with everybody, and to be accepting of the good, bad, and the ugly, you know. And that's like a weird thing for people to get deep into as well. They're like, well, but there's so many bad things in this world. I'm like, but there's so many great things in the world, and that comes down to the balance, right? And it's a huge chess game, man. We're all just really having to, you know, fight in a way to grow. And now that I'm like more accepting of that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready for life more than ever, rather than being I was a total people pleaser. I wanted to please everybody. I wanted to get through with everybody. When I was a street performer, I wanted everyone to stop, and I knew I just couldn't get everyone to stop. But I was like, and it would just crush me, because I'm like, oh no, I need to get everybody. And it's like, no, it just doesn't work that way. And even throughout that time, I realized, like, well, I just have to throw out my seeds, and if people choose to take them or grow from that, then that's up to them, not me, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna just put out those seeds of love. And that's exactly what
you said there. I love what you said. Sorry to cut you off, but I have to say this. I love what you said there. You said that you wanted other people to like you, and you wanted a bigger crowd. You went, right? Now, let me ask you this. This is really important for the people listening. When you thought that way, people actually were pushed away, weren't they?
Yeah.
Less people wanted to see, right?
Right, yeah.
So yeah. And in order for you to get, you have to let go. So once you let go, what did you notice?
Is when I received.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and I remember hearing a story from other great street performer, and where he had a breakthrough where he was really good, and he would do all sorts of shows around the world. And he was in New Orleans. This guy's name is Bobby Maverick. One of the greatest guys I saw perform on the streets. He's now retired, but I learned a lot from this guy. I got to travel with him too. He had a day where it was just a tough day, and he was like, you know, he was on top of the world. Like, his ego was well fed in that time, and he was going out in the streets to do another show. And then he just felt like it was harder to get everyone to stop and to really pay attention, sort of thing. And like, no one's stopping. And then it started to rain. And he's like, oh, great. So he has to go inside, and there's like a little cafe right there. And everyone's now in that cafe because it's raining. You can't walk around Jackson Square in the French Quarter. And he's just feeling like, no one really cares. What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you know what? I have all my stuff right here. Everyone's not doing anything. They're just waiting for the rain to stop, really. And I am, too, to go back to work, is what he's saying. What's up, Sonia? And then he puts out his table and then starts his show, but he does it in this more careless attitude, not really expecting anything.
Yeah.
And people started to actually pay more attention during the rain, during like a difficult time, and they were so happy because he had this like careless attitude. And the next day he came out, you remember that? He's like, wow. So he dropped the whole costume, getting up and looking a little nicer. And he wore just his shirt and shorts, and went out looking like a normal dude, and went out, kind of had a carefree attitude now. Like, didn't care if people stopped or not. And he was noticing he was getting a lot better crowds, and people were really paying attention, and they're really connected now. Yeah. And that's even something like Gaza. Gaza was kind of carefree, he's just himself. He doesn't want to please everybody, you know? Yeah. And at first I didn't get that, because I'd be like, that guy's a dick, you know? Or he's a very interesting dick. And now I get how it all works. It's just not,
Yeah.
you know, he's letting go of all that, of caring. And I know for me, I care way too much about what people think and feel that it screwed me over. So now I'm realizing I shouldn't care. So I gotta have that balance, you know.
Yeah,
Know
it's
when to
counterintuitive.
let go and hold on.
Absolutely, it's very counterintuitive. It's usually,
Right.
I find that so fascinating in psychology and you know, social dynamics. It's always the opposite of what you think it is.
Right?
It's so
I know,
weird.
it's such a trip. It
Yeah,
is
it's
a
so
trip.
strange. Like the simple fact that we appreciate something or someone when they're no longer there. You know, right now during the quarantine, we appreciate more the people that we used to hang out with. You know, we appreciate more being outdoors. We appreciate more doing the things we used to do every day. You know, we realize that we took them for granted. Now
Yeah.
when we don't have them, we can see the good in them. We can see how much they mean to us and how important they are. You know, and so that's really fascinating, right? Because it's like that whole thing. Uh, you only miss someone when they're gone. You only appreciate their presence when they're not there. And it shouldn't be that way, you know. It really
Yeah.
shouldn't. But
That's a total trip.
that's how our psychology works, you know. So we have to understand. This is why it's so important to, I feel, read about the mind and how we work. Uh, you know, how people become interested in things, because then we can adapt to the psychology and work within that structure. Like that is a perfect example. You know, people are actually pushed away when you seek their validation and attention. And when you let go of the need for that validation and attention and love and approval, that's when they want to give it to you, which is bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I'll give you an example for this. This is something I tell my hypnosis clients all the time. There's this construct that we have, you know, especially in romance. There's this saying of the other person being our other half, right? And in Spanish, it's said the other person is my half orange, mi media naranja. The same saying exists in French as well. And the concept there is you have an orange, right? This is my orange. And the orange is divided in half. And then this is you, right? This is you, and this is your partner. Okay? Now, the concept is that this other person is your other half. What does that mean? It means without them, you are what?
One.
Without
Separate.
without
You're without them.
what are you?
You're single.
Yes, what else?
And you're half.
You're
Feeling incomplete.
Incomplete, exactly. Yeah. So what do people say? I want someone to complete me. I want someone to make me happy. The fact is, this model of reality is, one, not realistic, and two, dangerous. Because no one can complete you.
Yeah.
And no one can make you happy. So when you put that much...
That's the hard truth. You know, saying that.
It is. It's a hard pill to swallow, you know? And when you put that much pressure and responsibility on another person, you know, that's a lot, and that's unhealthy, and it's going to push that person away, you know? So what happens here is that this isn't only true in romantic relationships. This is also the case with society and with friends. You know, this other half can be the rest of the world. This other half can be your family. It can be your friends. It can be your community. What does this whole thing illustrate? It illustrates that your self-image and the validation and approval is coming from this other half.
Yeah.
Okay? So when that other half is gone, when that other half doesn't give you that validation, that approval, that love, that attention, then you feel like you lack. There's a void inside. There's an emptiness. And so the real the real accurate and it's not only realistic but it's also helpful way to look at things is you have to be the entire orange. You have to be whole and complete and happy and have that sense of fulfillment on your own. You don't need another person. You don't need approval or validation from anyone. And so that validation needs to come from the self. Okay? I love me. I respect myself. I like myself. I challenge the ones that are here that have joined us or that are watching the playback of this interview. In front of the mirror, say to yourself, I like myself. And if you feel uncomfortable saying that, there's some programming you need to get rid of. Okay? Because your sense of self, your confidence, your validation, your self-image and love, it has to come from within. It cannot come from outside, because when the outside doesn't give it to you, or that other person leaves your side, you're going to be deeply hurt, and your ego is going to be affected by that. So what should it look like? You should be a whole orange, and then that other person that's in your life should be another fruit.
That's great fruit.
This is my very bad pineapple. So don't try to make someone just like you, okay? Don't try to make them you. They're them, you're you. Let them be whole in themselves. Be whole on your own, and then together you create a delicious fruit salad.
Yeah.
Right? And you accept each other, and you understand each other, and you're present with the other person. And again, this other person is your partner or your friends, your family, society. Let people be and be you, right? And just let things flow like that. So that's why confidence is so important, right? Because when our sense of self is tainted and scarred, and it's been chipped at, right? Chipped at because of trauma or, things people have told us,
Yeah, the
programming,
media, all sorts of stuff.
and the media, all kinds of things, then it affects very deeply how we show up in the world and our relationships with other people. Like it's a known fact. If someone's been cheated on many times, they get in a new relationship, now they almost expect to be cheated on again, because they
may continue in that pattern because of that belief. Yeah.
Exactly. And it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they start looking at everything. It's confirmation bias. They find excuses or rather proof that this person's being unfaithful. They find proof that this person is seeing someone else or when they're not, right? But they start filtering their reality through their pre-existing beliefs, right?
Yeah, and they do create that.
They
create it into existence, even though it's not real yet. That's another trip. Like when people start projecting that.
They do.
I've realized that in my own relationship. I'm like, wow, and even in myself. I'm like, whoa, that's a hard thing to be aware of. Yeah.
We must be aware of it. What happens there is the other person, because they're not doing that, and you're accusing them of that. Now you're injuring the trust that was there. Now that's being affected, and the person feels, oh my God, she doesn't trust me anymore. He doesn't trust me anymore. I'm gonna go find someone that trusts in me, that actually believes in what I'm saying. Because it doesn't matter what I say, even though I show the proof, this person still thinks I'm lying and being unfaithful, and that's the problem with beliefs, negative beliefs, limiting beliefs, is that they distort the way we perceive reality and can really destroy relationships and careers and all kinds of things. It could literally change your life, and not for the better. So we have to be really aware of what those are and get rid of them if we want to live a better life, a happier life.
No, absolutely. Let go of attachments. I know I'm doing the same thing. I recently am having a separation within my own relationship. And it's been a healthy thing, a healthy separation, because we're more aware. And, it's just like we were talking about with the orange, where we're feeling incomplete, but we're learning a lot of these things that we're speaking of, and knowing that we are complete as individuals. Yeah. And to look for that validation, it's all within us.
That's right.
And it's about that real true power of yourself, and that confidence in yourself. And yeah, so really awareness and confidence, they really go hand in hand. Without those, you would be stuck and maybe continue in those same patterns and beliefs. Yeah. So to really let go of attachments is a huge thing, because we want to hold on to so many things. We want to own this and that, and then it ends up owning you, and it turns back on you.
Yeah.
Or it's a wild trip. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, and really fascinating thing about love, for example, is it's not about letting go. Because I'll give you a simple example. A lot of people, if you ask them, well, if you had the ability, okay, if you found this magic crystal ball that showed you the future, and you could see 5 years from now, and you saw your partner with someone else, and they were really happy, happier than they've ever been with you, would you end the relationship and let them, find this person and be with this person? Or would you want to hold on to them? And the majority of people would say, I would hold on to them. Now, why is that? Let's analyze it, right? Because this is really revealing. And I'm going to go on a little side tangent.
Yeah.
There's a story, and I'm sure you must have heard a lot of this. It went viral, but there's this man, he's fishing at the edge of a river, and he's, doing his thing. And this old man comes up to him and he says, young man, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm fishing. Can you tell? I'm fishing. And he's like, he says, I love fish. I love fish. He's like, you love fish? He's like, yeah. I mean, it tastes delicious. I love gathering, with my family and preparing it, and taking the time and doing all that and eating it together with them. And he's like, oh, so you enjoy the fish because you love fish? He's like, yeah. And the old man told him, son, you don't love the fish. You love yourself. If you loved the fish, you would let it live. You would let it go. You wouldn't take it out of its environment and kill it and gut it and eat it.
All right.
You would let it be. You love yourself. You don't love the fish. You love how the fish tastes in your mouth. And the guy just stood in silence. That's a wonderful metaphor, because a lot of what we call love nowadays is actually fish love. And instead of loving someone for who they are and accepting them for who they are, and like you said, letting them be who they are, that whole fruit, right? Yeah. We don't love the person as is. We actually love how they make us feel. We love how we feel about ourselves when they're around. And that's not love. So going back to the crystal ball thing, when you ask someone, would you break up with this person, or would you keep them anyway, even though you knew this was the future, you've seen 5 years ahead? It's interesting, because a lot of people would be like, no, I would keep them by my side. The reason for that is they want the person for themselves, because they want that person to be by their side, because they want to be happy. They're prioritizing their own happiness and pleasure over that person's happiness, right? And so in the equation also comes jealousy, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want her having guy friends. I don't want him talking to women. And that's jealousy. And true love is not jealous, because jealousy is about possessiveness. It's about wanting this person for me and only me. And what that does is the whole thing that we were talking about. It actually pushes the person away. So
Yeah, it's a
True,
vicious cycle.
yeah, right? And it's the same thing. True love is about letting go. And if we think about it, right? If you're
And that's
jealous,
that old saying too, which always, I get it now, but before you wouldn't understand, like, if you love something, let it go.
oh man, I never put those two together. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.